I was suffocating. I didn't have hives anywhere else on my body. The reaction was very severe and very immediate. And I think that's important to clarify because an allergic reaction looks different and comes on differently for anyone. And you cannot always see the severity of it by looking at someone. And when you do see someone having an allergic reaction, it is never funny. So we went and got tested, and it was at that test where I was with the new doctor where he said, "You're not allergic to almonds." And that shook me. Like I wasn't more allergic to the other nuts. My levels had stayed about the same, but I was no longer allergic to almonds. And this was something we couldn't make sense of. And of course, I remembered doing that NAEA, and I wonder if that played any part, but I did get tested after that test and it hadn't changed anything. So I'm not sure. But Ryan was with me when I did the test in the hospital and ate almonds for the first time. And that was terrifying. I remember we got there and we had a room set up and we were going to be there for 10 hours. And the first, we had a jar of plain almond butter and they rubbed it on the inside of my wrist and my lip, the outside of my lip. And then they checked my vitals, wait 20 minutes, no reaction. And so then they put like a quarter of a teaspoon on my tongue, check my vitals, wait 20 minutes, nothing happened. And then they had me eat a teaspoon of almond butter, check my vitals, wait 20 minutes, nothing happened. And we repeated this for 8 hours. And by the end of that day, I ate a 4th cup of plain almond butter. And I was fine. And they literally sent us home and he was like, "Yeah, congratulations, you can eat almonds." Obviously with a big talk about how carefully I need to do that and everything. But that was such an interesting experience. And I mean, an absolute textbook miracle. It doesn't make any logical sense. It doesn't make any scientific sense. There's no way to explain that. And I can't help but feel like as life has gone on, I do eat products with almonds in them, and I can't help but be aware of the juxtaposition of that incident that triggered me going back in to get tested just one more time. Like the scare and the impact of that, and then the miracle and finding out that it, and the timing of it all, it feels very impactful to me. And I am so grateful for that miracle. That's very unique to me. I've never met nor heard of in the depths of Reddit or anywhere else, anyone else that has grown out of one of their allergens, which was that severe, but I did. And that I am grateful for every single day. And to me, almonds are like very symbolistic, because if I can eat almonds, then anything can happen. So all that to say, I am still allergic to, as I said, all tree nuts and peanuts except almonds. And I am more diligent than ever, of course, with being careful. I'm often asked a lot about how I manage travel. It's super scary. There's two sides to it. There's the side of taking the practical precautions necessary, making sure that I have 3 EpiPens with me on every single flight. I usually fast on flights. I do not eat anything because even if somebody next to me was eating peanuts or nuts, which are still passed out on so many commercial flights, which there is no reason for that, and they touched the armrest and I touched the armrest and touched my face, I could break out in a reaction. And so it's just not worth it. And so I usually wipe down my seat with the Purell wipes. I'm one of those people. And if I have to go to the bathroom, I touch the handle, I touch the door with a antibiotic wipe, and I don't eat. And that's how I fly. That's how I travel for the most part, unless it's food I've brought on that I know is safe, and the people around me are safe. And when I am abroad, it presents a whole other set of issues because there's a fine line between absolute paranoia and panic and the anticipatory anxiety of the fear of what if something is contaminated. Especially when there's a language barrier, it gets very difficult. But I've learned, and this is probably a whole other episode, but I have so many tools that I have learned to use in my life to not let my allergy control me and to live a full life and go where I want to go as cautiously and carefully as possible, and then live. And it includes, pre-calling the restaurants that we make reservations at, asking if they accommodate for allergies and oftentimes how they do so, pre-selecting things from menus and double checking on that. And then once you get there, telling them again. And then when they put the food in front of you, asking again and being exceptionally diligent. And then also always having EpiPens. When I stay at a hotel, we ask that all nuts are removed from the minibar area, and we make sure that they're aware of the allergens. And you just take the precautions that you can, and then you have to go forward and not let it run your life. And it is easier said than done. And maybe, this is a good thing that we can bring up in the next episode with some of the experts on how to do that and how to thrive with a life-threatening allergy, not just survive. And all about the psychology behind food fear and all of that. It's very nuanced, and I think it's looked different at different points in my life. Certainly in the wake of having a close call, it shakes you up for a long time. I was actually at a restaurant just last week, and it's a restaurant that I love, that I go to often. It's near my home, and they're always very accommodating. And I ordered one of the 2 dishes that I almost always order, and one of those dishes has cashews in it that they remove for me, and then they remove them before they make it. They don't take them off because then it would still be contaminated. And then I happened this day to order the other one that doesn't have nuts in it, but they still clean everything and prepare it differently for me. And he set down the food, and I said, as I always do, hey, just making sure this has no nuts or peanuts. And he was like, oh yeah. But he hesitated. And then he left. And I was doing something for work, actually, which I try not to work when I'm out to dinner, especially with Anderson. But I was finishing something on my phone. And it was 5 whole minutes. And this waiter came back. And he said, ma'am, I'm so sorry. I did not put the allergen on your ticket. So this was not prepared in a safe way. Let me get you a new one. And I mean, I hadn't touched it yet because I was working. But normally I would have dug right in and eaten it. And I couldn't help but feeling I told him thank you. And I looked in his eyes, and I could tell he felt horrible. He felt horrible for forgetting. And then I could tell that it took courage for him to come back because he deliberated for minutes and make the change. But I just looked at him in the eyes, and I just told him really nicely, I'm like, I'm so grateful that you came back. Please always be extra super careful. It matters. And he understood, and they made me a new one. And driving home, I just thought, if I had ordered the other dish, if I had eaten it and not been working, it was just almost so bad. And I think that's one thing that came through abundantly clear in the messages and the input from you guys that you sent in, was that people want people to understand that it is truly a life or death situation. And I don't think you can understand that unless you live with it or you have someone who loves you who lives with it. But it's very real and it's very scary, and there's no such thing as being too much when it comes to food allergies. I wanted to share, speaking of people who love people with allergies, I fell in love with Ryan literally from the first date because he I hate the attention that, especially like in my adolescence, I really hated attention for my allergies. I felt very embarrassed, almost ashamed. I did not like being out with friends or being around a group of people and having to ask what's in food. And so usually I just wouldn't eat. And I always had hand sanitizer with me. I would almost try to hide it because I felt so awkward. Like I did not want questions. I didn't want attention. And I didn't want the jokes. Do not ever, please God, if you are out with someone or with a group of people and someone in your party says, I have an allergy, do not be the person that straight away makes fun of it. This has happened to me more times than I can count. This happened to me on my business trip in Australia just this last time. It happens. It's wild how much it happens, but automatically I go to drink my water and they're like, oh, that's peanut water. Like they're so funny. And it's frustrating. And I can take a joke. I roll with the punches. Like I'm usually not an uptight person, but it's not something to make fun of or poke fun of. And I promise you, the person with the allergy already feels awkward enough and probably anxious because they're eating at a new place, and just don't do that. Okay? Anyway, I hated talking about my allergies, but when Ryan asked me on my first date or the first time that we hung out, I told him because I wanted to hold his hand and I wanted to hug him, and I couldn't do those things, let alone kiss him, because what if he had eaten peanuts? People have died from that. And so I told him about my allergy, really early on, I think via text before we actually ever hung out. And he was so sweet and kind and supportive. And I had shared with him that I hate making a scene. Like my hardest part, I think he had asked me what is the toughest part about having a food allergy, and I just said the attention. I don't like going to a restaurant and having to say it and ask and ask and ask. And on our very first date, he picked a restaurant that he knew that I loved, so that he knew I'd feel comfortable, that I'd been there before. And when we sat down to order, he looks at the waiter and he goes, "Sir, I have an allergy to nuts and peanuts, all nuts, and I will die if they're in my food. And so I need you to be exceptionally careful with my food and her food because we are sharing food. So every food on this table, every dish on this table, no nuts, no peanuts." And he just launched into this. And every time they brought something out, he double checked and he pretended like it was him with the allergy. And it's literally like the most romantic, sweetest thing ever. I mean, I can't tell you how much that meant to me, and the way that Ryan has continuously supported me. He lied to me and told me his favorite candy was purple Skittles when it was always indeed Reese's Cups, because he didn't want me to ever know or feel like I was keeping his favorite candy from him. I found out literally 5 years later from his mom. And now it's something that we joke about, but he immediately gave up eating all nuts or peanuts, not just when he was with me, but if he thought he was going to see me that day, he made sure that, like, pretty much he didn't eat them at all, because if he was in his car and then I got in the car, like, he was so careful. And in our home, he's always safeguarding me and looking out for me and being the one to bring it up and address it, so that I don't have to, and correcting people if they do make fun. And I can't describe the difference that type of support makes. I now am fortunate enough to travel with people who fully support me and have a deep understanding and are diligent and cautious and sometimes ask before I do and just support, never make me feel any certain way, never make me feel like an inconvenience. And that is how you treat someone with a food allergy. It's not a big deal, but it is the biggest deal for them. God. I have no clue. Let's see how long this has been. Okay, we've been going a while. I do feel like I made most of the points that I wanted to make. In regards to your questions, I think most of the reminders that were sent through were things that I've shared, just worded different ways. So I think you guys get the gist, just as far as like not making fun of people with an allergy, not making light of it. It's not something that is cool to joke about. I think it's just a base level of respect and kindness, and understanding goes a really long way. And the last thing that I felt like it was really important to talk about is the petition that I have created. I, in the wake of an exceptionally tragic loss of a beautifully and vibrant young woman who had my same allergy, and if by any chance her family ever sees this, I'm so sorry. And I'm sending all my love. But when I found out about this young woman who was at a party and ate a cookie that she had asked if it had nuts and was told no, she checked the label and it didn't say on the label. She even had her EpiPen with her, and it was not enough. And upon learning about this, I finally think it was the last straw for me to try to take some action. And so I created a petition to mandate the availability of EpiPens in all public buildings. And I'm just going to read to you why this petition matters, as I wrote it for the petition. Oh, sorry. As someone who has lived with severe anaphylaxis to both tree nuts and peanuts my entire life, I understand firsthand the fear and frustration that comes with food allergies. It's disheartening how often people make light of these serious conditions, and even more so when life-saving EpiPens are not readily accessible. Despite always carrying one with me, there's a lingering worry, what if one is not enough? Food allergies affect an estimated 32 million Americans, including 5.6 million children under the age of 18. That is 1 in 13 children, or roughly 2 children in every classroom. Anaphylaxis can occur within seconds or minutes of exposure to an allergen, leading to potentially life-threatening reactions. This petition calls for a mandate requiring all public buildings, including privately owned restaurants and all commercial airline flights, to carry EpiPens. These essential medical devices should be easily accessible for those living with food allergies. The presence of EpiPens in these locations could mean the difference between life and death during a severe allergic reaction. By signing this petition, you're advocating for increased awareness about the severity of food allergies and promoting accessibility to crucial medical resources. Please sign this petition today. Let's work together towards creating safer environments for everyone living with food allergies. I began this petition 2 weeks ago, and we are at 28,000 signatures. And that is so amazing, and it's not enough. So, if you have not done so already, I am begging you. I'm not asking you for a donation. I'm not asking you for anything except 12 seconds of your time that it would take you to click on the link that I will post, or the link in the show notes of this episode, and add your name to this petition. Do it for those that you love with food allergies. Do it to just because it's like a way that you can, it takes nothing for you, and it can mean a world of difference for millions and millions of people living with an allergy, and the millions and millions more who love and live with people of food allergies. just like an AED and a defibrillator, it's a life-saving medical device, and it should be available in public spaces. And having it there would make more of an impact than you can understand. There are thousands of comments on the petition that people have added on why signing this matters to them. And so I would encourage that you to look through those as well. But I want to thank everyone who has signed. I am not sure yet what the next step will be with this, but I am not going to let it drop. And I'm going to do whatever I can to help make a change, and to raise awareness, which is, again, why I'm doing this podcast episode, why I opened up about my personal story, and why we'll be following it up with an episode 2 with some experts. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your compassion and understanding. And to all of you who love people with allergies, thank you for your understanding and support and empathy and efforts. And to those of you who are also in the allergy community, I love you so, so much.